to recognize Mr. Watson. I believe this is his last meeting. I thought last meeting was the last meeting, but this is his last meeting. We greatly appreciate the time he has spent with us. Unfortunately, it was a short time, but we wish him well in his future endeavors and greatly appreciate it. Probably the biggest issue that the GW Commission will have in front of them outside of rates analysis was the Grayson Power Plant. So you got to be here for that, and we appreciate everything that you've done, and we again wish you luck in your future.
Thank you. I don't want anybody to think that because of the difficulties of determining what to do with Grayson Power Plant is the reason that I'm leaving, resigning from the commission. My wife and I are moving out of state in the next few days. And I'd like to say a few things. I'd like to thank my fellow commissioners. I regret that my time on the commission was short. When I accepted the position, I didn't anticipate that it would be so short, but things change. I'd like to say something about the city of Glendale and Glendale Water and Power. You know, I spent over 41 years working in municipal government, and people rarely call or write letters or send emails to say positive things, unless you work in the fire department, because everybody loves the fire department. But you know, my career was in law enforcement, and people didn't thank us because they didn't get burglarized in the last week or their business wasn't the victim of a robbery. People don't call to say, you know, my bill came on time, thanks for not screwing it up. You know, the sewer system works well. The street was repaired, thank you for doing that. You know, you hear about complaints, and that's the nature of working in government. You expect that. But I want to say, you know, as a longtime resident of Glendale, I think we get very good services from the city, all the departments, and my experience with Water and Power Commission has opened my eyes to the way Water and Power operates. And I've lived and worked in communities that were served by Southern California Edison and LA Department of Water and Power, and I can honestly say I think the quality of service provided by Glendale Water and Power far exceeds those two other utilities, both in reliability and responsiveness. There's always ways to improve, and I think that's part of the Commission's role, to advise the department and the council on what, you know, how to make some of the difficult decisions, like what to do with Grayson. But overall, I think you do a good job. And having sat on the Commission for less than a year, it's exposed me to the staff of Water and Power. And it's been really eye-opening, and I think the quality of people you have working for you, Steve, is really outstanding, and I think that's due in part to the leadership you provide. So I just want to conclude my short term here in saying I think the people of Glendale are very well served by Glendale Water and Power, and thank you for doing so.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to appreciate as well, you know, what you did, all your wise approach and balanced approach, and in this short period of time you were able to come to the speed, but unfortunately we are losing you. But anyway, any bad thing has got maybe a good thing for your life, so we really appreciate that.
Thank you.
If I could just add, sometimes you get quality over quantity, and in this case, I think we were the lucky recipients of having really your best quality work, especially regarding Grayson. That was such an important decision that is going to be influencing the future of the city and the future of all of the ratepayers here, and to have your good quality work. Of course, we would have valued having you for longer, but to have it at that critical juncture is such a gift for us, for the city. So thank you very much for your participation at that critical time and for your wisdom and guidance at that critical time.
Commissioner Watson, just a simple thank you for your service, and really appreciated your input and your time, and best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you as well, Commissioner, and good luck to you.
Okay, let's go to the next item.
Actually, I did have comments about, with regards to, if I can ask some questions with regards to the rolling blackouts which we've had last month. And I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time for it, but,
Well, we can cover it under item B,
Okay.
4B.
Okay.
However, Mr. Hahn, I was not able to make last meeting. I believe Mr. Hahn gave you an in-depth overview of the issue. I'm sorry, you may not have been here.
no, I was here. I was wondering, and I understood why we were having the rolling blackout. I was wondering whether we have a timeline as to when we're going to be fixing those issues so that we
I'll
no
cover
longer-
that in 4B for
That's
you.
where I was at.
Thank you very much. And as Mr. Zern said, we will cover under item B. Let's move forward.
4, reports for a customer service update.
Ms. Valle.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Tammy Valiant, Customer Services Administrator, and I'll be presenting the first quarter customer service update for you. These are some of our accomplishments that we completed in the first quarter. As you know, the electric and water rates change on July 1st, as do the sewer rates. When we have rate changes, we have a comprehensive rate testing policy that we have to follow that includes the testing and validation. We test approximately 300 accounts outside of the CIS in a testing CIS. It's calculated within the testing environment, and then we use an outside rate calculator so that we can reconcile and make sure that everything balances to the penny. So that was completed. We created dashboards for each of our areas so that on a regular basis, employees can view metrics and KPIs that are based on customer and employee operational needs. We also developed metrics that are used to tie performance to individual employee evaluations. And then we assisted the refuse collection revenue audit since we bill for integrated waste. They reviewed our policies and procedures, our rate application, and cash handling procedures. They made 3 recommendations that we completed as well. We documented all of our general customer service policies, such as applications for service, payment terms, disconnection of service. This document meets our SB 998 requirements, which is to post our disconnect policies online in 6 languages. We actually have 7 languages because Armenian is not one of the mandated ones, but we need to cover that as well for Glendale. So these are some of our current projects. The knowledge management system. This is a SharePoint site. It's been structured, and we are now moving all of our training materials, policies and procedures, statistics, the dashboards that I just talked about. All of those will be moved into the SharePoint site for all of the CSRs to be able to view. It'll be used as our internal communications site where we can post any type of announcements that they need to see, and they'll have a consistent message from us. The continuous landlord service agreement, this is something we've been working on for quite some time. It's actually a current process that we use now, but it's very manual and labor intensive. And this is where in a multifamily building, a tenant moves out and it automatically reverts to the landlord. And when I say automatic, it's really manual. A customer service rep is actually putting the landlord's name onto the account. We can now tie each unit to the landlord premise so that future move-outs, it'll automatically revert to the owner. Landlords can opt out of this if they'd like, if they do want the actual meters turned off, but we do find that most landlords want them left on for clean and show. The setup is pretty extensive, so each multifamily building in Glendale will have to be set up manually, but moving forward, it will be automatic, and it'll be very efficient for them. The telephone system upgrade that I've been discussing with you previously, we had our kickoff. We already have the calls being recorded in the new system. We'll be rolling out the scrape recording in the next few weeks. We've built our quality monitoring form within the system. It will automatically randomly choose calls that are going to be scored and sent to the customer service reps in advance before they meet with their supervisor. Once those are completed, we'll move on to the customer post-survey, the virtual queuing, and live chat. So for SB 998, we completed the disconnect policy portion of that requirement. There's a lot more work that needs to take place before it goes live in February. Part of that bill says that we cannot disconnect service for 60 days once a water bill has been delinquent for 60 days. So that lengthens out that process. So we're reworking and making modifications in the system and changing our notice policy for that. So we actually should be ready in January, so we'll definitely meet the February deadline. The new customer portal, this is a joint effort with business system support and marketing. This is something else I've been talking to you about for quite some time. We had our kickoff meeting. We're working on it right now, and it should be in place by the end of December. The following two slides show our productivity. I won't go through all of them. There are a few areas of interest. So for customer service, the direct customer contacts, which includes the calls, cashier, and web contacts and front counter, we have a 12% increase in those combined contacts. The majority of them are due to the phone calls that were a result of the outage, but we also saw an increase in web contacts and front counter as well. And then something that we're very happy to see under billing and account maintenance, which includes some of our credit and collection activities, we saw a decrease in final notice disconnections and then payment arrangement request. We had about 0.6% decrease in final notices, 9.5% decrease in disconnections for non-payment, and 15% less payment arrangements requested from customers, so that's very good. For field services, we saw an increase in customers requesting a visit to their property by one of our field technicians. This is pretty common for the first quarter because we have a lot of move-ins and move-outs, but we also saw a 7% increase in customers asking them to come out to help them with high bill usage. Those were primarily due to leak notifications that they received through the Water Insight program, which is very popular. So we see that as a positive thing. The fire billing, that doesn't occur, it's an annual bill, so you won't have any information on that until the end of Q2. As far as our customer service metrics, our average talk time was just 3 minutes and 42 seconds. We're moving closer to our target. The average queue time, our wait time, was just 28 seconds. We only abandoned 2.8% of our calls, and our service level, we answered 80% within 30 seconds. This is only for our call center. This does not include the calls for the days that we had our outages. That's a separate split. We're working on creating a combined split so that we can actually merge those service levels together. We're doing very good in that area. I've talked about the contingency plan that we have for overflow calls where we ask the billing staff to answer calls. We're kind of fine-tuning that process because when we pull from the billing department, then we get backlogged in that billing section, which is just as important as answering calls. So we're still fine-tuning that process. As far as web request response, we responded to 97% within 48 hours. That too well exceeds our target. That was due to customer service reps working overtime during the outages, so they had the extra time to work in between calls. And then e-bill only customers, 15% of our customers are signed up for paperless. That's about a 6% increase over last year. We still want to see that be a higher number, and we do think that with the new customer service portal and all the features that it offers, we'll see a large increase during this fiscal year. And then billing accuracy, we just almost made our target at 99.93%. 99.9 is first quartile, but we did up that to 1.95. Just to give you an idea, that's about 29 accounts. So it's not a big number. We almost made the target. Those 29 accounts were due to estimation errors due to like a water meter that went dead, and then we had to estimate it. We estimated it too high or too low. And then right after revenues, just 0.1%. We pretty much always do well in that area. We have a good, strong collection strategy. And then at the bottom, you can see the metrics for during the outage. So this covers July 24th and then September 3rd through the 12th, I believe, with an average queue of 1 minute and 21 seconds. Calls abandoned 15%, which is high, but if you think about how many calls come in all at once, it's still a pretty good number, I think. And the service level was 62% of calls were answered with 30 seconds. And that concludes my presentation.
I have a couple of questions. On the metrics, the first one, the average talk time, that your target is 3:30. So my question is that realistic? Is that benchmark? Because it looks like we're not hitting that mark, for the last 3 years, I guess. Yeah.
That is the average. That is pretty typical for a call center for all industries. But it really depends on what is going on with your utility. So, for example, when we're bringing on different programs, under normal circumstances, I would say yes. But as we bring on new programs and we're asking staff to direct customers to Water Insight or to O-Power or to the mobile app, things like that, we don't want them to rush off the phone. So we're okay with them not meeting that. So that would not be a measure that we would put towards their employee evaluation metrics unless it was, way out of line. But under normal circumstances, if we didn't have a new rate change or any new programs, then 3.5 minutes would be realistic.
Okay. And then secondly, just on and we're going to be talking about outages in just a bit, the matrix provided during our outage is, way off target. What are we doing to strengthen that performance, or do we need to do any additional training or so forth? What are your thoughts there?
Well, for the outages, to be honest, we just used the call center target for that. Okay. We don't have any specific targets for outages, but that's a good point.
Yeah, so maybe we look at a realistic target, because it seems like we're way off target there.
Yeah, you're correct. I just used the regular call center targets.
Okay, got it. That's all I have.
Yeah, I have a question. In this customer service highlights table, you have this customer requests, which is like increasing each period. So why it is increasing? Is it good that it's increasing requests?
For the customers, the field service customer service requests?
Yeah, the first item in that table.
So I don't know if that's necessarily good. That's not really that's not tied to a target. That's just informational for our productivity. And for first quarter, because we have a lot of families that are moving in and out of apartment buildings, the first quarter is typically high. What I mentioned was we did have 7% more field visits due to the Water Insight program. So I do view that as something positive, because customers are looking at their Water Insight. They're looking at the leak alerts, and those are customer side alerts. So they're getting a notification from us saying, you had continuous usage for over 24 hours, you may have a leak. And then if they can't find it, they're calling on us to help them. So I think the leak alerts are a positive thing. Did I answer that question
Thank
for
you. So it is negative.
I
So when requests increase, there should be a reason for that.
And I would tell you, Mr. President, members of the commission, it's likely because people have more information now than they have ever had before. And that leak alert alone, Tammy said, I think it's a good thing. It is absolutely a good thing. It is one of the finest components of our automated metering system, and the one that I get more thanks than anything else for, and I'm sure Tammy and her staff do as well, is to be able to get people tuned into that, because a lot of times they have no idea. It's a sprinkler. You know, some people don't put two and two together that a running toilet will actually add up pretty substantially. So in a lot of ways, folks asking for more assistance and requesting these things is a good thing, because I believe it's because they have exposure to more information and are more aware of what the water and electricity utility services coming to their house are doing for them or not doing for them. So I think
more they ask, more they get.
Yep. Actually,
Okay.
absolutely. Just as something Tammy said earlier about the programs, you know, we're staying on the phone a little longer to explain the programs. To me, I take it as a positive. We have so many new programs rolling out and so many good programs that people want to know about them and want to get involved in them, and the staff is being able to direct them to those. Those two are a good thing. Not every call is a positive call, far from it, don't get me wrong. But I think the fact that we have more things coming out, more information, more ability for people to get a better awareness of what the utility does for them, what they want the utility to do for them.
Thank you for an explanation.
One positive way of viewing it is basically GWP is working with the customers, particularly with regards to leak detection and prevention of water waste.
Absolutely, and Tammy and her staff do an outstanding job in that area.
So, and this would be due to the smart meters that.
That's one component.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, that's a key. But we also set the IT foundation for all of these things. Whether it's the billing system, the meters are definitely a big plus in that particular area. And I think we still have a lot to learn about how the meters can help us even more. You know, a lot of times when you have advanced automation, you don't quite. You keep scratching away and finding out more things that it can provide to you, and then you thus can provide that to your customers.
I think it's also an extension of when I get that letter that my neighbor is better than I am. You know, that little.
I hate that letter.
We wanted to talk to you about that.
Yeah, right. I think that sparks conversation as well. I think which is a good thing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's move to the next item.
4B, electrical systems summer performance.
So, members of the commission, it is a much shorter presentation than I thought it might be at the end of the summer. Going into the summer, we were anxious, is the word I have used. Grayson, from a mechanical operability, reliability, and dependability standpoint, was the most vulnerable that we have ever seen it. Predictions were that it was going to be a fairly warm summer. We could expect, those extended periods, 3 to 5 days in a row of high heat with the temperature not going down at night, so we wouldn't get the relief. And fortunately for us, we had a rather mild summer. We didn't see those high heat. We had a couple, as is usual. I can remember multiple triple-digit days, and I think we had one this year so far. We did have, a few days lined up. Unfortunately, the timing of those days, combined with something that occurred that you're aware of, and Mr. Kadikian brought up, was an issue that occurred that wasn't related to the heat, although greatly exacerbated by the heat, and that was the Ross Boyne transformer, the substation accident we had in July. The main transformer was fine, and again, I refer back, I know Mr. Hahn did an excellent job in giving you a presentation on that. However, you got that presentation on the 5th, so a couple things have happened since then that I wanted to update you on. And I think he went over the fact that the main transformer itself was in good condition. It was an auxiliary transformer that was used to strictly run the cooling fans that failed. But it failed in the perfect way, I guess you would say, or not so perfect way, by blowing back into the main transformer and taking out the bushings and some of the distribution lines. That in turn had a cascading effect. It ultimately ended up also affecting the Shoal substation, where it burned 3 lines that we had coming out of that station. So if you remember me talking to you in terms of Grayson, I used the term N1 minus 1 as a contingency. This was N1 minus 1 for the distribution system. This was it. For anybody who ever doubts or says, that could never happen, it happened right there. N1 was when Ross Point went down, N1 minus 1 when the 3 cables failed. So we brought staff together, and they did just an outstanding job. And the engineers gathered with the field folks. First thing we did was to take care of the 3 cables. We took them out of the 3 separate conduits, combined them into one conduit, pulled that, and had that fixed in 24 hours. Crews did not go home. They did not break. They worked through 24 hours and got it done. And that was September 8th, I think, is when we finished that job, or September 9th on Sunday. We started on Saturday. And then about 2 weeks ago now, we completed the repairs to the transformer, so the bushings. We had to order those, long lead time. We got those in, and I can't tell you enough how thankful we are to the City of Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, who helped us get through this. We don't have the internal resources. We don't have a transformer shop here of that for the main transformer. Obviously, LA is much bigger than we are, but they didn't hesitate to come and help us. So those bushings were all replaced. The transformer was tested and retested, and the oil tested, and our staff then went through the entire station, making sure alarms and alerts and everything was right, and we put it back in service, and it was holding full load and has since then. So that particular issue was taken care of. Everything has been fixed. Unfortunately, we did have to experience some 1-hour incremental rolling blackouts in about 25% of our customer base. It was in that one particular area served by both the Shoals station and the Ross Point station and the Howard station down here. So unfortunate, but and again, it occurs when the heat is the highest, and those were the times when the heat wasn't going down at night. So, but we got through that, and I think for the most part, I have to say, it's the same thing I said to the council. I was very proud not only of the staff and the great work that they did. They never stopped. Tammy mentioned she had a statistic up there. The statistic doesn't tell you the whole story, that these folks were answering the phones. They were here with call centers on the weekends. I had field staff that didn't want to leave. They just wanted to make sure this got done. Our dispatch folks doing a great job, and everybody scrambling. Los Angeles doing us a great service by coming in. But I have to tell you, you do get people frustrated and angry when it's hot and you don't have your air conditioning. I think it goes to show you, we had a couple folks, if you recall, that would come up and say, so we have blackout incidents when you get an N1 minus 1 or an N1. I can tell you from us and for who was answering the phone, that's not acceptable here. That's not acceptable by anyone here. And most people handled it pretty well, though. I was proud of them. We had a couple people that went off the deep end, and we dealt with that. But for the most part, I think the residents were understanding and were supportive, although frustrated as we were too. But I think all in all, we learned a lot, lesson-wise, which is important. But I know there was a lot of things thrown out there that this was deferred maintenance, and it was because we weren't funding maintenance. Wrong. This is not about deferred maintenance. The transformer was fine. It was a perfect storm incident where the auxiliary transformer blew. That happens. I can tell you that it happens probably 3 to 4 times a summer when it gets hot with pole-mounted transformers. So that wasn't the issue. Certainly, we'd like to keep up on our infrastructure and keep pushing harder and investing more in it, and we will continue to do that. But that wasn't the case here. And believe me, it had nothing to do with the finances. If anything, it has to do with the sheer amount of time and men and women that I have to do the work. And so we are investing heavily, and you all saw that. You saw that in our budget, in the pro formas that we gave you for the rate increases, and we have a pay-per-go capital system. So that's kind of nonsense when that's the issue that came up. It happens. It happens. These things happen. You guys over the weekend probably saw the transformers explode in Huntington Beach at a substation there. Very dangerous situation there. That was the main transformers that exploded. We were very fortunate. And we had men at the station, just so you know. That was the big thing. We had one individual who was as close as I ever want to see any of my staff in a situation like that. And we were very fortunate and lucky. That's the most important thing that came out of all of that. He's okay. The rest of it we'll fix. The rest of it, we'll have to roll up our sleeves, and everybody will have to, have to tolerate it for a little bit, but the most important thing was he was safe and everybody else was safe, and that's what we're in this business to do, is to make sure that we provide the quality utility service, but we do it safely, reliably, both for our customers and for our staff. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. And hopefully we're out of the heat. It's staying a little warmer, but and I know I was told you, as you probably recall, October usually has been one of the hotter times of the year. I think one of our hottest days was button up right against Halloween. So I think we're going to be okay. We look at the Farmer's Almanac and projections as far ahead as we can, but I think we've done okay. And fortunately, it's really cooling off at night, which is a great help. The system really cools down. If people turn those air conditioners off when they go to bed at night, that helps us tremendously. So,
Just so the auxiliary transformer in Rosemoyne has been repaired, fixed, changed?
well, the auxiliary transformer was the easy part. It was the damage done to the main transformer,
Right,
so
okay.
that's all been completely fixed.
Okay.
Yes.
I think next week is going to be hot too, that's why I'm asking.
It's going to be a little warmer, yeah, but we're still looking at, you're looking at the 80s. We're fine. I mean, the system is running really, really well. Like I said, my concern was all down on Airway in Fairmont, where I was worried about where we were going to have some issues. But we were very fortunate in that supply-wise and generation-wise, we were okay.
You have a question?
Yeah, so over the last 2.5 years or so, with the repowering of the Grayson project and all of the conversations about how our electrical system is going to change with the RFP, I'm just curious, with the RFP process now basically done, I understand that there's some battery storage, there's also some distributed energy as part of that. Would a situation like this, say 5 years from now, once the responses from the RFP have been actually implemented as part of our electrical grid, would a situation like this play out differently?
I seriously doubt it.
It's just the same.
Right.
Okay.
You're talking about, you're on the other side of the power plant. So this is the distribution side of the business. So however you generate, whatever you generate, or the way that you import your power, or whatever type of power that is, you're getting it here and generating it wasn't the issue. It was distributing it. So we had all the power we needed. We just couldn't get it to people because we had lost part of our distribution system, or a key component of our distribution system. But I will say, I'm glad you brought that up, because we do need to think about it when something like this happens, and it can happen at the power plant, that we make sure we have the contingency resources to make sure that we don't get into this situation.
I'm very pleased to hear that LADWP was quick to jump in and help you. And I know that those relationships don't get established during a crisis. It takes a long time to develop those good working relationships. So the city benefited from that, so that's good news. I used to live in the Eastern Sierra and have a lot of friends up there, and they've been going through a series of blackouts due to weather. And because of the current concerns from the last few years with liability on utilities from wildland fires, Edison has been, when an anticipated wind event, they're just shutting the power off. And so I see it on email and Facebook from my friends up there, and they're struggling with it. The utility is struggling with it because what's perceived, and probably is true, is a poor job of communicating to the public. They'll put something out that say, hey, it might happen, and then power goes out, and people are stuck. I think that probably is not going to be as big a problem here, but could. But when there are anticipated outages, or there are actual outages, the more information that gets out to the consumers in a variety of ways reduces a lot of concern from the point of the public. Because if I'm notified power's out, it's going to be out for, we think, 2 hours, then I can plan around that. But if I don't know when it's going to go out, so I know the GWP works on that, but whatever can be done to communicate when problems are anticipated or occur, I think is a true benefit to the customers.
I absolutely agree. And when I referred to we learned a lot of things from it, Most of those were in the communication and the outreach. It caught us by surprise, I have to be honest with you. When the heat rose and we were in that situation, we didn't initially realize that we had lost the cabling, but when that all came to fruition, it was a pretty quick turnaround. We needed to push the system down. We have certain limits that we can reach and maintain, and then we have to begin to shed load. But we certainly have been talking about, working on, and will continue to work on the notification part of it and communication part of it.
Yeah, Mr. Zern, I have a question.
Sure.
I'd like to ask about your inventory strategy. You know, in power systems, usually you have to do power system reliability study to decide about critical inventory items. So what is your strategy of inventory?
Well, and I assume you mean how much of the spare parts do we keep in a warehouse here? Is that, yeah.
How you decide what item to keep?
Well, a lot of it has to do with what's the history of our need to have certain things. What's the availability? In other words, is it something that we can get rather quickly, so no need for us to put it on our shelf? If somebody else has it on their shelf, it can get it here. How do our other fellow utilities do things? Maybe a little bit different philosophically than we do, but certainly something we could take advantage of, because we have done that. We have bought things. And let me back up for a second, because I'd be remiss. I certainly credited the city of Los Angeles, well-deserved. Also the city of Burbank. The wire that we used to make that repair on the 8th came from Burbank. We did not have that wire. We had run out of it, and they provided it to us. So those are some things, if we know we can, through mutual aid, rely on some different things. A transformer of this size is not something we've ever kept in an inventory situation, and the bushings either. The bushings, for a lot of people who've worked here for over 30 years, never saw a bushing be replaced. Our friends in the city of LA said, man, we're going to order some bushings, because we've never ordered those and had those on hand.
What are bushings?
These are the connections on top of the transformer that are porcelain, and they're the ones that were damaged. So that's where the lid of the auxiliary transformer went into and broke them. Essentially it. So those two things have had us rethinking our strategy. So it's very possible, because we're looking at, to what extent do we have, do we have a lot of different kinds of transformers, and so does it make a lot of sense to keep one? But we've been seriously looking at having an auxiliary transformer or an extra transformer on site, and also to order the bushings as well. Most every other thing that we have in our distribution system and for our routine maintenance is pretty well taken care of. Our warehousing operation stays on top of it, working with the field folks. But generally speaking, we don't have an issue that arises where we're lacking for maintenance and operation type parts to complete our maintenance. And also, we've been very lucky that our counterparts in East and West have been able to help us when we've really needed it. But when it comes to something like the size of a transformer, you're talking about $1 million piece of equipment that we'll put on a shelf. But we're still going to need somebody to take it out there and install it. This is a huge piece of equipment, but having it there, and that's where we're very lucky. As I said, this transformer wasn't damaged. It was good. If it had been damaged, we might have had a real problem. But to have one, that gave us enough of thought about it to think, to contemplate whether we would have one of those in the warehouse in case one was to go bad. And again, I refer back to what happened over the weekend. There's one that exploded, and it can happen. So that and these bushings, they're certainly something I think we're going to look at putting in our warehouse.
I strongly suggest and recommend to do a power system reliability study. This is not something new. So ANSI standards, the gold standard, they call it, has good statistics. Each item, how long it takes to repair. It comes from decades of military statistics. So then you don't have to buy everything and have in inventory. you have to investigate how fast you can get it from somewhere. This is in the study as well. So this reliability study gives a good measure what inventory to have, how fast you can get it, what would be the effect if you can get it, and that sort of stuff. So I'm recommending to do that.
We actually are in the initial stages of putting together a master plan for our capital program, which includes condition assessment, inventory, and we'll talk to the staff and see if that's something we could incorporate into that as well. I mean, we're going to have a big focus on poles and transformers just going through, as every utility is facing that you read in the paper. It's getting to be about that time. Poles and transformers have a defined life. They're outdoors all constantly, and so we want to systematically go through and set some pretty lofty goals. But it's very important for us to at least very basic infrastructure and go through and replace that. But certainly something we can look at. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We're all.
Just one more comment.
Okay.
Just on the back end, thank you, Steve, and the team for getting to that issue. Just on a communication, do we plan on providing just an update on what happened, what we're doing about it, so that the community is aware of the efforts and that type of post-com?
On September 10th, I gave a presentation to the city council, and we posted that presentation as well. And our social media has carried the updates on the repairs, and I believe our website as well. We've kept those updates there as well.
Okay. Do we have any cards?
No, we don't.
No?
No.
Okay. Adjourn.
No.
Agenda.
Oh, yeah, forecast. So you want to have that item in the forecast? Update?
No. I was asking about this particular. I was asking about the issue on if there was any post-communication on the incident.
Or if you like, we can put it in.
No, I'm
Okay,
fine.
all right. Any suggestion?
So I see that our legislative update has moved to next month. I think following on my question about Grayson and the RFP, when is the demolition of the current Grayson site scheduled for, even tentatively? And are we going to get updates on, where we are on the project timeline?
You will get updates. We don't have any firm. We're still negotiating with some of the distributed energy firms. The limited notices to proceed for the engines and the batteries have been issued, and they're working on their requirements with AQMD primarily, and so I'm not anticipating that we're going to have anything of substance back before the next year.
Okay. But
And
you'll
the
let us know.
demolition, I'd love it to begin next year, but we'll see how it all goes.
2020 is such a great number.
It is a great number. And 2020 was sort of the number I had settled on, but
Right.
it's gonna be a pretty monumental task for us to be able to break ground
yeah.
by then. That would be my goal, but I think the more likelihood is that we'll be doing it somewhere around 2021.
Okay.
So that's just a rough number for right now. But yeah, I don't anticipate we'll probably be back to you folks with any real substantive information till after the first of the year at least.
Okay.
And everything is going well. It's progressing, so.
Okay.
Based on the direction we got from the council on the previous items, and same things that you generally saw. So we're positive things are moving. We've had a tremendous reaction from the industry. And it's been a very positive reaction. And so we are the darlings of a lot of the green energy publications and groups. We're getting invited to speak at a lot of places, and some of our friends in the utility business are looking at us with one eye closed because what did you guys do?
Yeah.
But here we go.
Yeah,
That's
thanks
good.
for nothing, guys. I can imagine that.
Shouldn't we be communicating that out to the public and
Yeah,
let them know?
I think I would love it if you would share those clippings with the commission. I think if they can be shared with the commission, that would be great. I mean, we were all very engaged in the process in one form or another, and I think we'd really love to see kind of what happened afterward.
Well, it's a good story.
Yeah, it's a good story, so we'd love to see I'd love to see those clippings.
Been a good story.
And
Worth
even
taking
if-
advantage of it.
Yeah, and even if the update is, well, we're still working on everything, and we'll come back, again in another 3 months or quarterly with an update and let you know how things are unfolding, we would just like to stay in the loop on that. So
I would agree.
that's good news, and let's share the good news.
So you like to do that? I mean,
No, I don't, I'm not, any more than I just told you right now, I won't
Yeah,
have
there's
until
nothing
after the
more to
first of the
say.
year.
Okay.
We went up to December, and then we're going to come back in January. We'll figure out where that meeting's going to be, because how's it conflict with New Year's? It does. So we'll
Okay.
talk about January meeting. There we'll lay out the new schedule
Okay.
for the upcoming calendar year, and I can give you a better idea where that we might plug it in. I mean, because I can give you verbal updates like this, which says we're still going.
Yeah. It's
That's
still-
I was trying to think of something a little more substantive for you, and that would probably be more like, next year, maybe even early spring.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second.
okay, adjourn.